calmness. So, I'm trying to do this and let me see if it works. Here we go.
Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, seeing someone in a great hurry, asked, "Why are you running?" The person replied, "I'm pursuing my livelihood." Levi Yitzchak responded, "How do you know that your livelihood goes in front of you? Perhaps it is somewhere behind, and now you are running from it." Let's take note of what it is we are pursuing and slow down, noticing our intended path. In noticing, we can bring a sense of calm into the mind-body, letting go of striving and chasing. Rest your eyes, relaxing body and breath. As you breathe, allow the breath to stop running and chasing. Breathe in, inviting calm. Breathe out, inviting calm. Notice the chest area into which you have just breathed. If there is a grasping or clutching sensation in the chest area, see if you can just allow it to melt. Breathe in and breathe out with a sigh, inviting calm.
Thank you for allowing me to share that with you. I just came from flying around the room with preschoolers. So it was a nice transition for me, and I hope it was for you too. Both very enjoyable ways to make myself busy. So I found this beautiful resource. For those of you who've studied Torah with me before, you know that I love this this resource on the web called Sefaria. And I often utilize it to compile texts to share with you all when we study together. This time I went in and I was about to start compiling my own texts, and I found that this Rabbi Cassie Kale, who I don't know, had already compiled some texts that felt very pertinent and wonderful to share. So this is for Shemini, which is where we are in our cycle of Torah readings. And I thought if someone would like to just read for us in the English here, Leviticus chapter 10, verses 1 through 3. Is there anyone who would like to read? Merle, thank you.
As soon as I unmute. Now Aaron's sons, Abid and Abihu, each took his fire pan, put fire in it, and laid incense on it, and they offered before the Lord alien fire, which he had not enjoined upon them. And fire came forth from the Lord and consumed them. Thus they died at the instance of the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, "This is what the Lord meant when he said, 'Through those near to me, I show myself holy and gain glory before all the people.'" And Aaron was silent.
Okay. Thank you so much for reading, Merle. This is a really difficult and powerful moment in the Torah. And a lot of times when we come to this section of the Torah, I think there's a lot of focus on these two sons, Nadab and Abihu. What is this Eish Zara, this alien fire? And why are they punished in the way that they are? And those are all really valid and great things to study. But I wanted to bring you something, a little something different today. And so I wanted to focus on this. And it was so nice that Rabbi Cassie Kale already had this. She had the same question that I did. Aaron was silent. Really, to me, after we get past all of these questions that we have about what on earth is going on here, when we look at Aaron being a father, and his two sons are, he just loses them in an instant. And what is his response? Vayidom Aharon. Aaron is silent. So before we kind of dig into what some of the rabbis have to say, I'm just curious, does anyone on this call, on this Zoom call, have any insights of their own? What do you think is going on with Aaron in this moment?
Why did they do this?
Why did they do this? So he's asking, so he's silent outwardly, but maybe inwardly, there's something going on.
He was overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think that could be the case too, right? Like sometimes when something really powerful or disturbing happens, we can be overwhelmed, we can not even know how to process. Yeah, Benjamin, go ahead and unmute.
I see more acceptance of God's greatness. Well, I'm not sure exactly how they screwed up with this alien fire, but it was some kind of offense to God. And, well, Aaron's like, hey, God's knows, and I'm just sorry I lost my sons. That's pretty heavy, but it's overwhelming, but I'm not going to protest.
Great. These are all really, really wonderful ways to look at this. And I think also shows us, Penina.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is the first time that I thought about this. That way, what I'm going to say now. I'm thinking if they said Esh Zara, I wonder if they brought an idol with them into the temple. Because why would they say a foreign
Zara, yeah.
If they brought a foreign something. You cannot bring the fire itself, right? But I'm just thinking that this word Zara all of a sudden hit me, that it's possible that they brought an idol with them.
Right.
And that's why,
can you tell everybody about the connection between that word Zara and Avodah Zara? Can you share that with everyone?
Yeah, Zar, it's the opposite of Gar. If you're going to take the Zayin and you're going to put it the other way, it's to be somewhere. And when you are somewhere, you are familiar to people. But the word Zar is a stranger, somebody who you're not familiar with. So they're going to the Mishkan HaKodesh, to the place where it's supposed to be now the holy ark or whatever, everything that it is that maybe before the ark even, but it's supposed to be a place for God. So, and I think that's why Aaron was quiet, because he probably was thinking that whatever happened there will reflect him, because he's the father and he's teaching them. And he was the Kohen Gadol, and now his kids are bringing in something foreign that didn't belong there. Yeah. So, because I was trying to think, how does the fire can be strange? The fire is a fire. So I somehow now, the more I talk about it, the more I think that this is what happened there.
So I think, Penina, you're really onto something because of this word Zara,
right?
It being foreign, but there's also the concept within
something that didn't belong there,
also
not supposed to be there. Yep.
And
they brought it in, and then when it caught fire, they see it as a sign that God was angry. But it caught fire. I don't know what. Maybe it was made out of wood. Something that happened there that they caught fire.
I just want to talk for a moment about the term avodah zarah.
Right.
It refers to exactly what you were talking about. So this word zarah, we have it connected to Aish, which is fire, but we also have this concept in Judaism called avodah zarah, which means literally it means strange
worship,
strange worship. But when we talk about it in English, it's almost always translated as idolatry.
Right.
So I think that word, like, it has this extra meaning attached to it. Sorry. So Brad and then Douglas. Brad, you need to unmute. We still can't, Brad, we still can't hear you. You're not there. Try one more time.
Sorry about that. I can't help but think of the Prometheus story. Prometheus who stole fire from the gods and then was punished. And here it's a similar type of thing having to do with an abuse of fire being punished on human beings. I mean, it's maybe a remote connection, but it's something, it seems to me like there is some connection there.
Yeah, it's very mysterious. And it's funny because I'm trying to, even as I'm trying to steer us away from focusing on Nadav and Abihu, there's this urge, this very human urge to understand what happened there, who were they, what were they doing, why were they punished, and why was God so angry? And the rabbis have been puzzling over this for years. Douglas.
Yeah, I think Brad had a real good point. My reaction would be, what the hell happened? What did we do wrong? What is this thing? I wouldn't sit there in silence. It just, it would, throw up your hands, That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, this is 3 verses of just so much information, but so much left out that we don't know. We don't know what Nadav and Abihu's intentions were. We have no idea what's going on with Aaron, why he's silent. Is he fully silent? Is he silent inside and outside? Like, is what's going on in here silent, or is he just, not able to speak? Is he stunned into silence? So much could be going on here. So there's a lot that's left out. And so, of course, our rabbis love to fill these gaps in for us. But before we do that, I see, Susan, you're raising your hand. Please share with us. But you need to unmute.
Yeah. So I thank Brad for introducing me. I hadn't heard the Prometheus, but it also reminds me of the Icarus story, where Icarus flew too close to the sun, trying to fly, and in a competition with his dad, and his wings burned and he fell to the earth. So that's a Greek story, so we'll see. But this was one of the most impressive passages in the Torah for me, because it left so much unanswered, and the rabbis have so many different explanations. And I love that. I mean, both for what was it that caused this? It's an alien, something that wasn't important, wasn't appropriate, lack of faith in God's power. Egotism are some of the things that they attribute to this. Disrespect. Some say maybe they had too much wine before and they were casually dressed. So is that another thing? They were impatient. They wanted to succeed. They didn't consult Aaron. I mean, these are all the reasons. I didn't come up with these, but various reasons that they can have. I mean, it's one of the most unexplained passages. And then what was the fire? Was it fiery passion? Was it, and the caution of having too much passion or not enough passion that they wanted to do it? So excessive piety there. So it was really, it's so open to so many interpretations. As is Aaron's silence, and I think that carries a lesson too, in the face of such tragedy as the loss of their children. What can someone say? You know, and what can someone do, you know? And
I-
just a minute, Panina.
I know, I'm waiting.
Yes, you can, but I'm not through yet. So I'm looking forward to hearing you, but let's let me finish. And the anguish that was there, and maybe he couldn't express it then. So, you know, I think this is one of the most eloquent passages because it leaves so much for us to try and figure out. Okay, Panina.
Susan, thank you so much. Pinina, you have to unmute.
Okay, I think he was embarrassed because he was supposed to be the one that knows what to do. He was the chief Kohen Gadol, and now his kids are doing this. I think it's embarrassment and also maybe fear, because the fact that they caught fire and they were consumed themselves, it just shows how the God that's supposed to be the winning God from this whole scenery is actually reacting, is showing his powers. So the children got consumed by that. I think it's like the acknowledgement of how the force that's been claimed to be that God at that moment is actually showing itself, and the fact that he was the father and he failed to convince his children that God is God and not the idols.
Thanks,
That's it.
Pinina.
I'm done.
Thanks. Rebecca, I'm going to ask you to share, and then if it's okay with everybody, I'd love to move on so we can see what the rabbis have to offer us.
I have a question. So there's burnt offerings, cereal offerings, peace offerings, sin offerings, guilt offerings. Was it that they didn't offer the right offer? I mean, I guess my question is, if you're giving a cereal offering, is that supposed to be only at a certain time compared to if you're giving a guilt offering?
So there are all kinds of rules about what's supposed to be offered when, how it's supposed to be offered, what the thing is that can be offered, and its state. So there are all these rules around it, and perhaps it's just that there was some blemish or problem, but none of that is explained for us, and it really just is. It's left open to the imagination, and it is mysterious. So I'd love to, if it's okay with you all, this is a question that we're never gonna answer. We can each have our own answers and strongly held beliefs about what it is that Nadav and Abihu were up to, and why it is that this Eish Zara that they brought forth was so offensive to God that they were killed. But what we're left with is this mourning parent. And for me, I feel like our time, as we talk about how we're going to busy ourselves, our time is more valuably spent on studying Aaron's silence. Because I 222, I think it's unlikely that any of us is going to be struck down for bringing alien fire to God. Okay. But it's very likely that in our lives, we will be struck dumb by loss. So that's what I would like to kind of investigate with you all today, because it's something that is part of our human experience. We all experience loss. So our modern Torah commentary, this is the Plout commentary. It's the one that when you come to services at Wilshire Boulevard Temple, this is the commentary that we have in our pews. Has a small comment here, and it just says in the rabbinic phrase, he acknowledged the justice of the decree. So this is a very classical response to this. And Benjamin, I think it's really in alignment with what you offered us. So we're great rabbis here. We're all coming in with the with things that you're going to see coming from the commentaries as well. So we have Rambam, and he says, "Vayidom Aharon," and Aaron was silent. This means that he had cried aloud, but then he became silent. So this is fascinating. Like Rambam is just completely, adding stuff. So he says that he actually did cry out loud and then he became silent. Or perhaps the meaning thereof is as in the verse, "Let not the apple of thine eye tidom," which means cease. Okay, so that's where he's getting that he actually had cried out, because tidom can mean to cease, right? So in order for something to cease, it already has to have been happening. And that he takes this from Lamentations, that this "let not the apple of thine eye" comes from Lamentations, which actually is a really interesting place to draw the text from as well, right? Because I think even in drawing the text, when Rambam draws this text from Lamentations, he's already like identifying with Aaron as a mourner. So here the meaning would be, "And Aaron ceased to shed tears." According to the first interpretation, he was silent, not crying aloud, but he still shed tears. But according to the second interpretation, he was calmed completely. So the Rambam is I think also drawing on this, that of course Aaron must acknowledge the justice of the decree, but also recognizing that Aaron is a parent and that he has experienced this loss. But then also I think putting Aaron up on a pedestal as the high priest, and saying that, even at the instance of the loss of his two sons, he was able to step back in this way. We then have Abarvanel, who says that Aharon his heart turned to lifeless stone, and he did not weep and mourn like a bereaved father, nor did he accept Moses' consolation, for his soul had left him and he was speechless. I find this one to be fascinating. I think that Abarvanel moves away from the place where Rambam is, that's kind of putting Aharon in this place as if he's almost not a normal human, right? Because a normal human thing to do, if God forbid your child is killed, the normal thing to do is to grieve. But Abarvanel says, well, so he's a father. How can he not grieve? How can he possibly be silent? Well, he was so, in Abarvanel's vision, he was so shaken that his soul had physically left him. He turned to stone. He couldn't weep. He was speechless. He was really in shock, I think is how we would say this in modern terminology, right? And I'm sure that all of us who have, God forbid we've experienced this ourselves, but when there's a sudden loss, we've seen people who actually who really do go into shock, and who it's a human response that is a protective response, right? Because it's too much to process in the moment. And so there's this almost protective response of not feeling, so that the processing can happen later. Anybody have anything to offer on the differences in these two that we've read thus far? Yeah, Penina.
It could be that people got into shock. I'm sure I lost my son in 2012. And he was already a grown man, 52 years old, a month before his birthday. And he lived in Seattle, Washington. He was very smart, and he had a lot of stuff that I had to deal with when he passed away. But I think the way society is at the time where the loss is happening, it's going to also shape the way that the person is going to react to what's happening to him. Because if you have to deal with a hospital that was having two insurances, but never charged the one insurance, and then sends people that are debt collectors after you, first of all, to pay the hospital bills before you even know where you are. And I was not living in Seattle at the time. I had to learn how to go down to the city hall, and I fired the lawyer because every time that I made a phone call to him, it was $350. And then he had a helper that was making mistakes all the time. And I had to deal with deeds and properties and you name it. I had no time. And then I get a phone call from his accountant one day. And he said to me, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm doing." He said to me, "Well, Ron said that if I have any questions, I will talk to you." So you know what? Sometimes you have no time, and then you have to actually deal with people who come to you, debt collectors, and he had a second insurance, and yet the hospital sent debt collectors, and without even filing for the second insurance. So I'm telling you, it all depends on where you are, who you have to deal with, what's happening to you, and not always you could be so in shock and let things go, because all his work for all his life, it would have gone down to God knows where. So like I said, it depends on the times. And I don't know if every time that we see something that's similar to something that happens in other either mythologies or stories that we borrowed from them. I wonder if they borrowed from us.
Sure.
Okay, that's all.
And you know, what was your son's name?
Ran Wiesel. Eli Wiesel and my husband are distant cousins. I have a nephew by the name of Eliezer. So they lived in Salotvene, and one side of the river was Siget. Eli Wiesel was in Siget. My husband's family was in Salotvene. And you know what happened to him? He gave his money to Madoff, and then, you know, all his, whatever it is that he wrote in his books and everything, it was like, okay, now what? It's life. It all depends where life, when it's happening. So I am trying to paint the picture of Aaron now, and I'm trying to feel, I don't look at any other cultures. I'm looking at how must he feel? What is he facing right now? It's his authority as a priest, I think, because if his son did such a bad thing, how could he be so, righteous? And so he doesn't speak, because what would he say to them? So, like I said, it depends on the situation and who are around you and who you deal with and what is being thrown to you. So that's that. Sorry that I took so long.
It's okay. It's okay. I want to just offer.
Yeah, his Yizkor is next month, May 4th.
Zichrono livracha, may his memory be a blessing.
Toda rabba. Thank you. May Yirtzeh Hashem. Okay. So
let's go on and see what some of our other rabbis have to say here. We have from the Biur, who says, "In my opinion, this does not denote a mere absence of weeping, but also resignation and inner composure, as in rest in the eternal and wait patiently for him." That's from Psalm 37. Similarly, Aaron overcame his grief and his soul adhered to God, who is sanctified through his holy men. So the Biur here sees a Aharon as a tzaddik. Okay, so who in the moment of where most normal human beings would need to go through the phases of mourning that are common to those of us who have endured loss, which include anger and confusion and sadness and all of these things. No, Aharon goes straight to the end of the grieving process, and he has resignation, he has composure, and he has this ability to cling to God. This is a very Hasidic thought, and so the Biur just raises Aharon up to the status of a tzaddik. It's interesting the difference here between Abarvanel and Biur. So I think for the Biur puts Aharon up here as like an aspirational way to be, and Abarvanel really just says he wants to identify with Aaron. He wants a soul brother, right? So just two very, very different ways of looking at it. So there's something interesting in here that I want to make sure we get to. So I might pop us down a little bit. Let's come here to the Rashbam. So the Rashbam says, do not mourn, do not weep, and do not stop the service. For what I am telling you is what the Lord meant when he said, through those near to me, I show myself holy. Through the high priests who come near to me and serve me, I wish to be sanctified. I do not want them to profane my name and my service, for the Holy One told me, the priest who is exalted above his fellows, on whose head the anointing oil has been poured, and who has been ordained to wear the vestments, shall not bare his head or rend his vestments. He shall not go where there is any dead body. He shall not defile himself even for his father or mother. He shall not go outside of the sanctuary and profane the sanctuary of his God. We have here the citation. So when we see this Barachot 6b14, this is from the Talmud. Okay, so these are rules concerning the priests and what they are meant to do when they have a death in their family. And is anybody here on this call a Kohen?
I'm a Levi.
You're a Levi?
Yeah.
So there still to this day, when Kohanim go to a cemetery, there are washing basins. So that there's this idea of making sure to
Oh, I see. Okay.
stay clean. This ritual purity of staying away from this idea of mourning. So it's a fascinating idea. I think it's very foreign to us as moderns, but I wanted to make sure that we are aware of this. So I think what this does is this takes us toward a more modern understanding of what is it that we are supposed to do for those around us in our community. And I think this is incredibly pertinent to us as people who are connected to a synagogue community, when those in our community experience a loss. And so Rab Papa in Moed Katan takes this idea of what Aharon's silence means and says the merit of attending a house of mourning lies in maintaining silence. So I'll tell you that as a cantor, someone who has the privilege of helping people go through mourning process and coming to homes and leading Shiva Minyanim in particular, I'm often asked by others, what do I do? What do I say when I don't know what to say to my friend? I don't know what to say when there's a loss. And our tradition actually teaches us to do the thing that comes least naturally to us. And that is just to be present and be silent. So here we have this rabbi saying, actually, Aaron is showing us in this piece of scripture the way that we are supposed to behave toward others when they experience a loss. So why do you think it is that our tradition teaches us that not talking, that being silent in the presence of mourners, but being physically and emotionally present is a value, is a Jewish value?
I think that we don't really know what that person is going through. We don't know their relationship with who died. We don't know. And I think we have to let them, if they choose to speak, and we just have to take what they speak. I've often felt that it's safe to give them a hug, that to show them we're here for you, whatever you might need, but we're not going to shove ourselves on you. I mean, we went through a similar situation that Panita went through with my brother-in-law when he died very young. And basically, Arnie was the parent because my mother-in-law was not capable of being the parent. And, you know, 13 years later, we still don't, he doesn't like to talk about it. And he doesn't like to discuss it with people if he doesn't have to. We don't, I mean, I know, our daughter knows, family knows, but I think being silent helps the person in the sense that we don't really know we assume what they're going through, but we don't know what the relationship is and we don't know how to react properly. And I think being silent is just being there and you're comforting.
Thank you, Merle. Thanks. Susan.
Merle, I thank you for that. I see that I thought in my own life. And I won't go through it all for you, but I went to, people react differently. It could be the same parents, and I know that in my house, my husband and I reacted totally differently. And also I know from a grieving group I went through, that's one place you can talk. And people's reactions to things that people said to them, some people said, oh, that was horrible. I couldn't take that. And other people said of the same statement that was comforting. It made me feel good. So the problem is when people come to you, is you could say the wrong thing. And I've had that happen too. And it's so upsetting. But who knows, to someone else, it could be comforting. And later on, what I thought was so upset about actually had some meaning to me. So what Merle said was correct. And some people want to talk about the loss and others just don't. So one has to accept these differences. And in that respect, it makes it so difficult when you're trying to comfort someone. All you can really say is how you feel sorry for their loss, So that's my.
Rebecca.
I think there's a fine balance. For example, when my father died, I went to hospice for some grief counseling, and the tears were just pouring out of me. And the lady just sat across me in silence, did nothing, didn't even offer me a tissue. It was the most horrible experience I'd ever had.
Rebecca,
I want to tell you something that.
Nina, can you hold on just a second?
Yeah.
Just want to
Sorry.
respond to Rebecca.
Of course.
Rebecca, I'm so sorry for that experience. I wish that all of us could have been there to hold your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Penina, then Brad, and then Benjamin.
Okay, I want to tell you something that will make everybody feel sad, but a little better about what's going on now in Israel. When Ran came to Portland, he met two people. So he wrote once a story, so the eulogy, one of them, the Christian one, wrote, a Jew, a Christian, and a Muslim met in a bar. And then he told the story of the relationship that they were friends all through the years till Ran passed away. So what happened is that his name was Hussein. He's from Lebanon. He is he's not Jewish. He's Muslim. They met in Portland, three young men that I still keep in touch with, the other one, with both of them till today. And they became such good friends. So when Ran got sick on his last day, when he was already passed away, Hussein arrived from Florida. He moved to Florida. When he arrived, he found out that just 5 minutes before, Rani was still laying in bed. They didn't take him yet, the Chevra Kadisha. He came and he screamed so much, and he was holding him and crying and screaming. The whole hospital shook. Well, and then when it happened now, what happens now in Israel, the first thing I did is I called him up, and no, I get a text with no name. I get a text and it says, how are you? How you doing? And right away I knew by the phone that it was him. I called back and I said, so how are you doing? And I'm glad you called, and I'm fine. And how you doing? How is your family? And he said, I just want you to know Rani was my brother. That's what he told me. Rani was my brother. So he texted me, but he doesn't put a name. Isn't it amazing? Unbelievable what's going on now? Okay.
Thank you, Penina.
Okay.
Brad. You need to unmute.
Getting back to the question you posed, is our tradition sort of based on the fact that words are inadequate to deal with a tragedy such as a death? All words, the best intentioned words, the most carelessly said words, the most carefully crafted words, it doesn't matter. Words are just inadequate to deal with the situation. The best you can do is a hug in that situation. I mean, that would be my response to your question.
Yeah. Brad, thank you so much. I tend to agree with you. There's one other piece for me, but I'm going to wait because I know, Benjamin, you had something to share. So I'll ask you to share first, and then if you don't hit on it, I'll share the other piece that exists in this space for me as well.
Well, thank you, Cantor. This is quite a discussion today for a Friday. But I think we see there is no right answer, because here some are saying, I want to be silent. Some want to talk. I've been to different funerals and such where we want to talk about the person and their life. And, he had this person had a rich life. And I remember this particular thing about him that was kind of unique and cute or what have you. So I guess maybe we start with listening. And after we listen, then we can gauge whether we should talk or not talk. But there is no right answer, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I just want to say what a wonderful and wise group we have here. And I think that that is what you shared, Benjamin, is so important, is allowing space for the mourner to set the tone. And we often have such difficulty with allowing for silence. And when someone's in mourning, oftentimes kind of the processing is slowed down. So allowing that, or even before mourning, when I know I've visited people who are ill and just sat with them for a long time before they're ready to speak. Because sometimes people need a lot of time to collect their thoughts. And I think, Brad, this also speaks to what you were saying in terms of like, there are no adequate words, but as humans, of course, that's the way we communicate. So we try to funnel down our experience into these into the limited way that we have of communicating. And I think our tradition is telling us that in addition to what we can say as words, and it is, Benjamin, you're so right, like after allowing the mourner to speak first, that our presence, our intentional presence, and not just showing up and like being there and making jokes or whatever, but our intentional presence of being there for the person and really listening compassionately, receiving, taking a moment to understand what it is that we've received from a mourner and then responding. It's so countercultural, right? Like everything now is just as fast as can be, but just taking a little time for slowness and presence. So I know that we're heading into Shabbat, but we've been focusing on some very heavy subjects. So what I'd like to do before I say goodbye to you all is to just kind of move us very, very quickly in a different direction, just to think about the idea of Moses's silence, but take it out of the context of this tragedy that he's experienced. And just to say, may you experience this Shabbat, some of that downtime, some of that slowing down, some silence in the moments that you walk through. May those moments bring you comfort, and may you have a Shabbat full of joy and a Shabbat full of peace. And I thank you so much for your presence and for your participation today. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you
Shabbat
so
Thank
much.
you.
shalom.
Shabbat
Thank you,
Shalom.
Cantor.